The alarm bells rang throughout the Solar Defense Command Center on Luna Base. Admiral Cross stared at the main screen in disbelief. The long-range sensors had detected them at the edge of human space, just as Zara had predicted. "How many?" he asked the sensor operator. "Sir, it's difficult to count. They appear to be connected to each other. We're reading at least 300 individual signatures, but they're moving as one unit." Captain Morrison stood beside the Admiral, watching the tactical display. The Devourers did not look like ships at all. They appeared as massive, dark shapes that stretched across thousands of kilometers of space. "My God," Morrison whispered. "They're enormous." Zara sat at a console nearby, her blue face pale as she watched her worst fears come true. "The swarm is larger than the one that destroyed my world. They have grown stronger since then." The first human colony in their path was New Austin, a mining world with 2 million people. Colony Administrator Frank Miller sent desperate messages to Earth as the dark shapes approached his planet. "We can see them now with our telescopes," Miller's voice crackled through the radio. "They're like nothing we've ever seen. Some kind of living ships with metal parts attached. They're surrounding our planet." Admiral Cross activated the emergency protocols. All defense fleets moved to intercept, protect New Austin at all costs. The nearest human warship was the UES Defiance, commanded by Captain Linda Shaw. She had the newest weapons and the best-trained crew in the fleet. Her ship reached New Austin just as the first Devourer began its descent toward the planet. "Beginning attack run," Captain Shaw reported. "Firing all weapons." The Defiance's energy beams struck the Devourer and actually seemed to hurt it. Parts of its surface exploded and dark fluid leaked into space. For a moment, the humans felt hope. But then something terrible happened. The creature began to change. Its damaged areas healed quickly, and new armor appeared where the human weapons had hit. When the Defiance fired again, the beams had no effect at all. "It adapted to our weapons in minutes," Shaw reported, her voice full of fear. "It's like it learned how to defend against them." The Devourer struck back with tendrils of energy that wrapped around the Defiance. The human ship's shields held for a few seconds, then collapsed completely. Captain Shaw and her crew of 400 people died as their ship was crushed like an empty can. On New Austin, Administrator Miller continued broadcasting until the very end. "The creatures are landing all over the planet. They're not just attacking our cities, they're draining the oceans, the air's getting thinner, our children, oh God, our children." The transmission ended. Within 6 hours, New Austin was completely silent. 3 days later, a human scout ship reached the New Austin system. Where the planet had been, they found only a small gray rock. The Devourers had taken everything: the atmosphere, the water, even most of the planet's mass. "How is this possible?" Dr. Grant asked when she saw the recordings. "How can they consume an entire world so quickly?" Zara's voice was barely a whisper. "They turn everything they eat into more of themselves. The rocks become part of their bodies, the water becomes their blood. The people become part of their minds." Admiral Cross felt sick. "You mean the colonists are still alive? Inside those things?" "In a way. Their knowledge, their memories, their skills, all of it becomes part of the swarm. That is how the Devourers learn so quickly. They absorb the minds of everyone they consume." The loss of New Austin sent shock waves through human space, but the Devourers did not stop. They moved toward the next planet on their path, Harmony Station, an agricultural world that fed half the outer colonies. This time, Admiral Cross sent an entire battle group to defend the planet. 12 warships, including his newest carrier, attacked the Devourers with everything they had. The results were the same. The creatures adapted to each weapon after being hit once or twice. They learned from every human tactic and developed counters within minutes. The battle group was destroyed in less than 2 hours. Captain Morrison watched the disaster from his command ship. "Admiral, conventional weapons are useless. They're learning faster than we can adapt." "Then what do we do?" Admiral Cross asked. Zara had been studying the battle reports. "Your military fights very logically. You use your best weapons in the most efficient ways, but that makes you predictable. Are you saying we should fight poorly on purpose? Morrison asked. Maybe. The Devourers have fought many species before yours. They expect certain patterns of behavior. When you meet those expectations, they can adapt quickly. Dr. Grant had an idea. What if we use weapons that don't make sense? Things that no logical military would ever try? Like what? Admiral Cross asked. I don't know yet. But Zara's right. We need to be unpredictable. The Devourers have absorbed the knowledge of 17 different civilizations. They know how space battles should be fought. On Earth, the news of the lost colonies caused panic. Millions of people tried to leave the planet, but there was nowhere to go. The Devourers were blocking all escape routes. Secretary General Patricia Wells finally declared a global emergency. All resources are now dedicated to planetary defense. Every ship, every weapon, every person must work together if we hope to survive. Senator Hayes, who had opposed military preparations for so long, appeared on television with tears in his eyes. I was wrong. God forgive me. I was wrong. We should have listened. But some humans refused to give up hope. Engineers began working on new types of weapons using whatever materials they could find. Miners converted their industrial equipment into weapons. Even civilian scientists joined the effort. Captain Morrison took command of the defense efforts. We have maybe 2 weeks before they reach Earth. If conventional tactics won't work, then we'll try unconventional ones. Dr. Grant started experimenting with random attacks using obsolete equipment. What if we use technology that's so old they've never seen it before? Zara watched the humans prepare for their final battle. Unlike her people, who had become paralyzed by fear, the humans seemed to get more determined as the situation became hopeless. Your species is very strange, she told Dr. Grant. When my people realized we could not win, we gave up hope. But your people seem to fight harder when victory becomes impossible. Maybe that's because we're too stupid to know when we're beaten, Dr. Grant replied with a sad smile. The Devourers continued their advance toward Earth, consuming 2 more planets along the way. Each victory made them stronger and smarter. They had absorbed the knowledge of thousands of human military officers and scientists. But as they approached humanity's homeworld, something unexpected began to happen. The human defenders were not fighting the way the Devourers expected. Instead of using their best weapons, they were using primitive, inefficient, almost random tactics. The Devourers had no experience with enemies who deliberately fought poorly. For the first time in thousands of years, they encountered something they did not understand. The final battle for Earth was about to begin, and neither side knew what would happen next. The United Earth Council building in Geneva was full of worried voices. Secretary General Patricia Wells sat at the head of the large table, looking at the reports from Captain Morrison's ship. Around her, representatives from every major country and space colony argued about what to do. Zara stood in the center of the room, still wearing the simple clothes that Dr. Grant had given her. She had told her story 3 times already, but many of the politicians still did not believe her. This is ridiculous, Senator Richard Hayes said loudly. We're supposed to change our entire way of life because of one alien's scary story? Admiral Nathan Cross stood up from his chair. Senator, we sent ships to check the coordinates she gave us. Every single location was exactly as she described. Dead worlds, stripped of everything. That doesn't prove her story about these Devourers, Senator Hayes replied. Maybe her own people destroyed those worlds. Maybe she's lying to get our help. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's top alien expert, shook her head. I've studied Zara for weeks. Her biology, her technology, everything checks out. She's telling the truth. Patricia Wells raised her hand for quiet. Zara, please tell us again how much time we have. Zara's green eyes looked tired. She had been answering the same questions for days. Less than 3 years now. The Devourers move in a straight line through space. Your solar system is directly in their path. And you're absolutely certain they will come here? Asked Dr. Helen Carter from the Mars colony. Yes, they never change direction. They have been following the same route for thousands of years, eating every world they find. Admiral Cross pulled up a hologram showing the galaxy. Red dots marked the dead worlds that human scouts had found. Look at this pattern. It's a straight line heading directly toward Earth. If they continue at the same speed, they'll reach our outer colonies in exactly 32 months. The room became quiet as everyone stared at the map. The evidence was clear, but many still did not want to believe it. Senator Hayes spoke again. Even if this threat is real, we can't just panic our entire civilization. Do you know what it would cost to build the defenses this girl is talking about? We'd have to stop all other projects and focus only on the military. What's the cost? Of being wiped out completely? Admiral Cross asked angrily. We don't know that will happen. Maybe we can negotiate with these creatures, maybe they can be reasoned with. Zara's voice became very sad. My people tried to communicate with them. The Devourers do not talk. They do not negotiate. They only consume. Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward. Zara, can you tell us more about how they fight? What kind of weapons do they use? They do not use weapons like you understand them. The Devourers are living creatures, but also machines. They are larger than your biggest cities. They surround a planet and drain it of everything: air, water, land, life. Then they use what they have taken to make more of themselves. How many of them are there? Patricia Wells asked. The swarm that destroyed my world had hundreds of individual Devourers, but they worked together like one giant organism. When they learn something new, they all learn it at the same time. The politicians continued to argue for hours. Some wanted to start building massive defenses immediately. Others thought it was too expensive and might not even be necessary. A few suggested trying to evacuate Earth entirely, but that was clearly impossible with billions of people. Admiral Cross tried to convince them. We need to start military production right now. Every day we wait makes us weaker. And create a panic that could destroy our economy? Senator Hayes replied. I won't support that. Dr. Carter from Mars had an idea. What if we compromise? We increase military spending by 20% and start converting some civilian ships to carry weapons. But we don't declare an emergency yet. Many of the representatives nodded. This seemed like a middle ground that everyone could accept. Zara watched them vote and felt her heart break. This is not enough, she said quietly. You need to prepare much more than this. Patricia Wells looked at her with sympathy. Zara, we understand your concern, but we have to balance many different needs. We can't destroy our society to prepare for a threat that might not come for years. The threat will come, Zara said. I have seen what the Devourers do. 20% more weapons will not save you. After the meeting, Admiral Cross walked with Zara through the halls of the building. I believe you, he told her, but politicians are afraid of making big changes. Your people are not ready for what is coming, Zara replied. My people had weapons that could destroy stars. We had shields that could protect entire planets, none of it mattered. Then how can we possibly win? Zara stopped walking and looked out a window at the busy city below. I do not know if you can win, but maybe your people are different from mine. Maybe you will find a way that we could not. Captain Morrison arrived at the building later that day. He had been working with Admiral Cross to make secret plans in case the government did not do enough. Captain, Admiral Cross said, the council voted for minimal preparations. We need to be ready to do more on our own. What do you have in mind? Morrison asked. Hidden supply depots, secret weapons research, ships that look civilian but can fight if needed, things the politicians don't need to know about. Dr. Grant joined them in the Admiral's office. I've been studying the remains from those dead worlds. The Devourers don't just destroy, they learn. Every species they've fought has made them smarter and stronger. So how do we fight an enemy that learns from everything? Morrison asked. Zara had been listening quietly. My people made the mistake of fighting exactly as the Devourers expected. We used our best technology and our most logical strategies, but the Devourers had seen it all before from other species. Are you saying we need to be unpredictable, Doctor? Grant asked. Maybe. Your people are very different from mine. You are more chaotic, less organized. Perhaps that could be an advantage. Admiral Cross did not understand. How is being disorganized an advantage? The Devourers expect their enemies to be logical and efficient. They adapt quickly to reasonable strategies. But what if your strategies are not reasonable? The months passed quickly. Earth's military began the small preparations that the Council had approved, but it was clearly not enough. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison and Admiral Cross worked in secret to build hidden defenses. Dr. Grant continued studying the destroyed worlds, learning more about how the Devourers operated. Each new discovery made the threat seem more impossible to defeat. Zara spent her time trying to help Earth scientists understand her people's technology, but most of it had been deliberately destroyed before the Devourers could take it. My father made sure they could not learn from our ships, she explained. It was the last thing he could do. As the second year began, long-range sensors detected something moving in the outer reaches of the galaxy. The signals were faint, but they matched the energy patterns that Zara had warned them about. They're coming, she told Admiral Cross when he showed her the data. Faster than I expected. How much time do we have? Zara studied the readings carefully. 18 months. Maybe less. Admiral Cross felt his heart sink. Earth was not ready. The politicians were still arguing about budgets while death approached from the stars. But Zara surprised him with her next words. Admiral, I have been watching your people for 2 years now. You are not like my species. You fight when others would surrender. You find solutions when others see only problems. Perhaps there is still hope. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES horizon and watched the stars through the main screen. His ship had been traveling for 6 months now, looking for new planets and strange life forms in the Kepler 442 system. The mission was simple: find anything interesting and bring the information back to Earth. Dr. Lisa Grant walked up to him with a datapad in her hands. She was the best scientist on the ship, always finding things that others missed. Her face showed excitement as she spoke. Captain, we found something unusual, she said, pointing at the screen. There's an energy reading coming from the asteroid belt. It's not natural. Jake looked at the data. The readings showed a large object floating between the rocks. It was giving off power, which meant it was not just another dead rock. Could it be a ship? Jake asked. Maybe. But it's not like anything we have seen before. The design is completely different from human ships. Jake called Commander Alex Torres to the bridge. Alex was a good soldier who always got the job done. When he arrived, Jake showed him the readings. Alex, I want you to take a team over there, find out what it is. Yes, sir. I'll take Sergeant Kevin Blake and a few Marines with me. The away team put on their spacesuits and took a small shuttle to the mysterious object. As they got closer, they could see it was definitely a ship, but it looked strange. The metal was a dark blue color and the shape was like nothing humans had ever built. It was about the size of a small building. Kevin Blake scanned the ship with his equipment. No life signs, but there's still power running through some parts of it. They found an opening on the side and carefully went inside. The hallways were narrow and the walls glowed with a soft blue light. Everything looked very advanced, but also very old. This technology is way ahead of ours, Alex said into his radio. Captain, you need to see this. They moved deeper into the ship until they found a large room at the center. In the middle of the room was a clear pod filled with some kind of liquid. Inside the pod was a girl. She looked young, maybe 16 years old, but her skin was light, blue and her hair was silver. The hair seemed to move by itself even though there was no wind in the room. She appeared to be sleeping. Is she alive? Kevin asked. Alex checked his scanner. Yes, but barely. Her body temperature is very low. Captain, Alex spoke into his radio. We found someone. She's alive, but in some kind of sleep. Jake's voice came back through the radio. Bring her back to the ship. Dr. Grant will want to examine her. As they prepared to move the pod, something unexpected happened. The liquid inside began to drain away and the girl's eyes opened. They were bright green, unlike anything the humans had ever seen. She sat up slowly and looked at the 3 men around her. Then she spoke in perfect English. You are humans, she said. It was not a question. Alex stepped back in surprise. You can speak our language? I learned it from your radio signals. I have been listening to your people for many years while I slept. She climbed out of the pod and stood up. She was thin and moved like she was still weak from her long sleep. Name is Zara. I am from the planet Kethfar, but my world is gone now. Gone? What happened to it? Kevin asked. Zara's face became very sad. The Devourers came. They destroyed everything. My people, our cities, our entire planet. I escaped in this ship, but I was the only one. She looked directly at Alex. You must take me to your leaders. I have a warning for your people. What kind of warning? Alex asked. The Devourers are coming here. They follow a path through the galaxy, eating every world they find. Your solar system is next on their route. Alex spoke into his radio. Captain, you really need to hear this. Back on the horizon, Jake listened as Zara told her story to the entire crew. She explained that the Devourers were not like any enemy humans had ever faced. They were huge creatures that lived in space and ate entire planets. How long do we have? Jake asked. 3 of your years, maybe less. They move slowly because they are so large, but they never stop. Once they choose a target, nothing can make them turn away. Dr. Grant studied Zara with her medical equipment. Her biology is completely different from ours, but she's telling the truth about her age and species. This ship is also much more advanced than anything we have. If they're so powerful, how did you escape? Jake asked. Zara's eyes filled with tears. My people were scientists and peaceful. We had good defenses, but the Devourers were too strong. My father put me in the sleep pod and sent me away just before our world died. He told me to find other species and warn them. Jake looked at his crew. Some of them looked scared, others seemed doubtful. Can you prove what you're saying? Zara nodded. I have star maps in my ship's computer. They show the path the Devourers take and all the worlds they have destroyed. You can check these places with your ships. Dr. Grant spoke up. Captain, I think we should take her seriously. If she's right, Earth needs to know about this immediately. Jake made his decision. Set. Course for Earth. Full speed. As the horizon turned toward home, Zara stood looking out at the stars. Your people seem brave, she told Dr. Grant. But bravery alone will not be enough. The Devourers have destroyed 17 different species. Each one thought they could fight back. What made them different from us? Dr. Grant asked. They were all very smart and had good technology, but they fought the same way their enemies expected them to fight. The Devourers learn quickly and adapt to any strategy. Dr. Grant thought about this. What do you think we should do? Zara shook her head sadly. I do not know. My people tried everything we could think of. Maybe your people will find a way we could not. But you must prepare quickly. The Devourers show no mercy to anyone. The journey back to Earth would take several weeks. During that time, Zara shared everything she knew about the enemy coming toward humanity. But deep in her heart, she feared that her warning would come too late. Just as it had for her own people, Dr. Grant stood in her laboratory, surrounded by the strangest collection of equipment anyone had ever seen. Old computer parts, broken mining tools, and expired medical supplies covered every table. She was building weapons that made no logical sense. This is insane, said Engineer Sam Mitchell as he watched her work. You want to load garbage into missile warheads? Not just any garbage, Dr. Grant replied. Specifically chosen junk that creates random electromagnetic patterns. The Devourers adapt to logical systems, but chaos might confuse them. Captain Morrison entered the lab with Admiral Cross. Any progress on the new weapons? Maybe. We tested one of my chaos bombs on a captured piece of Devourer technology. Instead of adapting to it, the fragment seemed to malfunction. Admiral Cross looked skeptical. How can random junk be more effective than our best weapons? Zara, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. My people always used our most advanced technology against the Devourers. We fought efficiently and logically, but your species seems to think differently. Commander Torres joined them, still covered in grease from working on his ships. Admiral, I've been modifying my attack craft to use mining equipment instead of military weapons. It doesn't make tactical sense, but maybe that's the point. Show me what you mean, Admiral Cross said. They walked to the hangar where Torres had been working. His fighter ships now carried industrial rock crushers, electromagnetic pulse generators meant for clearing space debris, and cargo containers filled with what looked like scrap metal. The idea is to create chaos in space, Torres explained. Instead of precise attacks, we'll create unpredictable situations that the Devourers can't adapt to quickly. Sam Mitchell had been studying the Devourer fragments that human ships had managed to collect. I found something interesting. Their coordination system uses very advanced quantum communication, but it gets disrupted by primitive radio interference. You mean our old broadcast systems can jam their technology? Morrison asked. Better than that. I tested it with some ancient Earth radio equipment from the 20th century. The random static completely scrambled their networks for almost an hour. Dr. Grant felt excited. That's it. We need to fight them with obsolete technology and random tactics. Things so primitive and chaotic that their advanced systems can't process them properly. Over the next week, human forces prepared for the most unconventional battle in history. Civilian cargo ships were loaded with industrial waste and sent to ram into Devourer scouts. Military vessels began using kinetic weapons, simple chunks of metal fired at high speed, instead of energy beams. The first test came when a small group of Devourers approached Jupiter's moons. Commander Torres led the defense with his modified squadron. Attack pattern random 7, he ordered his pilots. No coordination, no formation flying. Everyone pick a different target and use whatever weapon feels right. The pilots thought he was crazy, but they followed orders. One ship fired, mining lasers while spinning in circles. Another dumped a cargo hold full of metal scraps directly into a Devourer's path. A third ship began broadcasting old Earth music at maximum volume while firing kinetic rounds in random directions. The result was amazing. The Devourers, expecting logical military tactics, could not adapt to the chaotic human behavior. Their coordination systems became confused trying to process so many different threats at once. It's working, Torres reported. They're actually retreating. Back on Earth, Admiral Cross couldn't believe the reports. You defeated them with mining equipment and music? Yes, sir. The key seems to be unpredictability. Every time they start to adapt to one tactic, we switch to something completely different. Dr. Grant had been developing more chaos weapons. I've created electromagnetic mines that broadcast random radio signals. When the Devourers try to adapt to the interference, the signals change to something completely different. Zara watched the human preparations with amazement. My people would never have thought to use garbage as a weapon. We were too proud of our advanced technology. Sometimes being primitive is an advantage, Morrison replied. The Devourers have absorbed the knowledge of 17 advanced civilizations, but they've never fought anyone stupid enough to use trash as ammunition. The humans began deploying their chaos strategy throughout the solar system. Instead of traditional space battles, they created what military historians would later call controlled anarchy. Cargo ships filled with obsolete electronics crashed into Devourer formations, creating clouds of electromagnetic interference. Mining vessels used their industrial equipment to destabilize asteroid fields, creating unpredictable debris storms. Even civilian volunteers helped by broadcasting random radio signals from their personal transmitters. Engineer Mitchell made another breakthrough when he discovered that the Devourer's biological parts were sensitive to certain types of music. Specifically, it seems to be the most chaotic forms of human music: heavy metal, experimental jazz, and something called death. Metal cause actual physical pain to their organic components. You're telling me we can hurt them with bad music? Admiral Cross asked. Not bad music, just very chaotic and unpredictable music, the kind that has no logical pattern for them to adapt to. Soon, human ships were broadcasting the most discordant sounds they could find while attacking with weapons that followed no tactical doctrine. The combination of sensory chaos and unpredictable violence began to take its toll on the Devourer swarm. Captain Morrison coordinated increasingly bizarre operations. In one battle, human forces deliberately fired their weapons in the wrong directions while playing children's nursery rhymes at high volume. The Devourers became so confused that they began attacking each other. The key is to never do the same thing twice, Morrison explained to his commanders. The moment they adapt to one type of chaos, we switch to a completely different type. Dr. Grant developed biological weapons using Earth's most chaotic ecosystems. I'm introducing random mutations from viruses, bacteria, and fungi. The combinations are so unpredictable that even I don't know what they'll do. The most successful weapon turned out to be something no military strategist would ever recommend: social media. By broadcasting millions of contradictory messages simultaneously, human forces created an information environment so chaotic that the Devourers' communication systems couldn't process it. They're trying to learn from every message at once, Sam Mitchell reported. But the information contradicts itself so much that their systems are crashing. Zara participated in the chaos by sharing stories about her people's defeat. But instead of telling the truth, she deliberately mixed in false information, creating fake tactical reports that confused the Devourers when they absorbed her memories. I am lying to them, she explained to Dr. Grant. My people always told the truth, even to our enemies. But your people have taught me that sometimes deception is necessary. As the Devourers approached Earth, they faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Instead of advanced technology and logical strategies, they faced deliberate chaos and intentional inefficiency. Human defenders used outdated weapons, ignored tactical doctrine, and broadcast random nonsense while fighting. The combination proved more effective than the most advanced military technology. We're actually winning, Admiral Cross said in disbelief as he watched the latest battle reports. Our chaos tactics are working better than conventional warfare ever did. But the Devourers were beginning to adapt even to chaos. Their systems were slowly learning to process random information and unpredictable attacks. They're getting better at handling our chaos, Dr. Grant warned. We need to escalate to something even more unpredictable. Morrison had one final plan. What if we make chaos itself chaotic? Instead of random tactics, we use tactics that change their own randomness. It was a desperate idea, but humanity was fighting for its survival. As the Devourers made their final approach to Earth, human forces prepared to deploy weapons and strategies so chaotic that even they didn't understand how they worked. The final battle began at the edge of Earth's solar system. The Devourer swarm had grown larger and more dangerous as it consumed the outer colonies. Now hundreds of the massive creatures approached humanity's home, ready to add Earth to their long list of conquered worlds. Admiral Cross commanded the defense from Luna Base, while Captain Morrison led the attack fleet directly into the heart of the enemy formation. The human ships looked like a collection of junk compared to the biomechanical giants they faced. All ships begin Chaos Protocol 7, Morrison ordered. Remember, if it makes sense, don't do it. The human fleet scattered in every direction, using tactics that violated every rule of space combat. Some ships flew backwards while firing mining lasers. Others spun in circles while dumping garbage into space. A few vessels began ramming asteroids to create unpredictable debris fields. Dr. Grant watched from the science vessel UES Random Factor as her biological weapons spread through space. The viruses and bacteria she had created were designed to be as chaotic as possible, mutating randomly every few minutes. The biological agents are working, she reported. The Devourers can't adapt to diseases that keep changing faster than they can analyze them, but the enemy was learning. Even chaos became predictable if used too often. The Devourers began developing new strategies to handle human unpredictability. They're adapting to our chaos, Commander Torres warned. We need something even more random. Engineer Sam Mitchell had been working on the most desperate weapon of all, controlled madness. I've created a computer virus that makes our own systems behave randomly. Our ships will literally go crazy, making it impossible for the Devourers to predict our actions. That sounds incredibly dangerous, Admiral Cross replied. It is. Our own ships might attack each other by accident, but it's the only way to stay ahead of the Devourers' adaptation. As the battle raged around Earth's moon, human forces deployed the madness virus. Suddenly, their ships began behaving in ways that even the humans couldn't predict. Weapons fired. At random targets. Ships changed direction without orders. Radio communications became streams of nonsense. The effect on the Devourers was immediate. Their coordination networks, overwhelmed by trying to process completely irrational behavior, began to malfunction. But victory came at a terrible cost. Human ships, unable to coordinate properly, began colliding with each other. Admiral Cross watched in horror as 40% of Earth's defense fleet was destroyed by friendly fire. "Sir, we're losing too many ships," Morrison reported. "The madness virus is working, but it's killing us too." Zara, who had been quietly studying the battle, suddenly spoke up. "I know what we must do, but it will require a sacrifice." "What kind of sacrifice?" Admiral Cross asked. "The Devourers have a central command node that coordinates the entire swarm. If we can destroy it, the rest will become confused and start fighting each other. But someone must get close enough to deliver a weapon directly into its core." Dr. Grant understood immediately. "A suicide mission?" "Yes, and it must be done by someone the Devourers don't expect, someone they will underestimate." Zara stepped forward. "It must be me. My people were pacifists. The Devourers will not see me as a threat until it's too late." Morrison shook his head. "We can't ask you to do that." "You are not asking. I am choosing. My people died because we could not find a way to defeat the Devourers. But your people have shown me that sometimes victory requires embracing madness." Dr. Grant had been working on her most dangerous creation, a biological weapon based on Earth's most chaotic life forms. "I've combined viruses from 17 different Earth species. The result is something that thrives on the kind of ordered systems the Devourers use. It won't kill them directly," she explained, "but it will introduce random elements into their communication networks. If we can get it into their command node, it might cause the entire swarm to lose coordination." Zara took the weapon, a small device containing billions of microscopic organisms. "If this works, it will be because your people taught me the power of chaos." She climbed into a small fighter ship that had been modified to look damaged and helpless. The plan was for her to drift toward the Devourer command node as if she were a refugee seeking mercy. The Devourers, recognizing her as one of the pacifist species they had already defeated, allowed her ship to approach. They had absorbed the memories of her people and knew that the survivors posed no threat, but Zara was no longer the same person who had escaped from her dying world. Living among humans had changed her. She had learned that sometimes survival required fighting, even for those who preferred peace. As her ship entered the command node's protective barriers, Zara activated Dr. Grant's biological weapon. The chaotic organisms spread through the Devourer's systems like wildfire, turning order into madness. The effect was immediate and devastating. The command node began broadcasting contradictory orders to the rest of the swarm. Some Devourers received commands to attack, others to retreat. Many were told to target their own allies. Within hours, the entire swarm had dissolved into chaos. The biomechanical creatures, unable to coordinate their actions, began consuming each other. Their adaptive abilities, which had made them invincible against logical opponents, became a weakness when faced with completely irrational commands. Zara's ship was destroyed in the confusion, but her sacrifice had saved Earth. The remaining Devourers, driven mad by the biological weapon, scattered across space as they fought among themselves. Captain Morrison led the cleanup operations, hunting down the few Devourer fragments that still posed a threat. But most of the enemy had been destroyed by their own chaotic systems. "Final casualty report," Admiral Cross announced to the assembled commanders. "We lost 60% of our military forces in 12 colony worlds. But Earth survives." Dr. Grant stood looking out at the debris field where the great battle had taken place. "Zara saved us all, but the cost was so high." "She knew the price," Morrison replied. "And she chose to pay it anyway." In the months that followed, humanity began rebuilding their shattered civilization. But they also began preparing for future threats. The chaos tactics that had defeated the Devourers became the foundation for a new military doctrine. Earth's new fleet bore names that honored their unconventional victory. Ships called UES Beautiful Chaos, UES Random Factor, and UES Controlled Madness. Each vessel was designed to be unpredictable, carrying weapons and systems that defied logical explanation. Dr. Grant established a research program to study the remains of the 17 civilizations the Devourers had destroyed. We need to learn from their knowledge, but we must never become like them. The moment we become too logical and predictable, we become vulnerable. Captain Morrison was promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's new exploration fleet. Their mission was to find other species threatened by similar enemies and teach them the power of controlled chaos. The final memorial service for the war's victims was held on Luna Base. Among the honored dead was Zara, the alien girl who had warned them and then saved them. Her statue bore a simple inscription. She taught us that sometimes the greatest wisdom is knowing when to embrace madness. As humanity spread back out into space, they carried with them a new understanding of warfare and survival. They had learned that advanced technology and logical strategies were not always enough. Sometimes victory required the courage to be unpredictable, chaotic, and completely insane. The Devourers had expected to face another logical, efficient civilization. Instead, they had encountered humanity, a species crazy enough to use garbage as weapons and social media as tactical doctrine. That madness had saved not just Earth, but potentially every other world the Devourers might have threatened. In the end, Zara's warning had come true in an unexpected way. The humans hadn't listened to her words about conventional preparation. Instead, they had listened to her deeper message about the need to be different from every other species the Devourers had faced. Humanity's refusal to fight logically had become their greatest strength, proving that sometimes the best defense against overwhelming order is the courage to embrace beautiful chaos.